So, as I said, increasing the impact of the Come and Try It events. You probably realised by now, or maybe have come to understand the acronym of CATI, so Come and Try It events. They're becoming increasingly popular with clubs of late, especially with the last probably couple of years, obviously with the Find Your Way project, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And they're really good at bringing the sport into communities, taking it right into the spaces where people are. If they're advertised well, if they're delivered well, they're a great advertisement, not only for the sport, but also for your club to kind of get really in the faces of people. The people that are exploring parks, the outdoors, the nature reserves, the kind of people that you want to say, if you're out here enjoying this space, this could be for you as well. So they really are beneficial to the club. So as you can see, what's the point? So we're very aware and we're very understanding, and we've talked about it at length of volunteer time. You know, we've got so many clubs, so many volunteers, everything is volunteer led, and we appreciate that, you know, the priority for clubs will always be events, you know, training for their own club members. So what's the point in come and try? It's like we're already stretched volunteer time, we're already stretched with our calendar, we're doing as much as we can. But if you can just do one or two come and try it events a year, you know, some clubs have got the volunteer kind of network to do them every school holidays, for example, or just one every 6 months, one every 3 months. They really can be beneficial to just raising that awareness of the sport in your area. So as you can see, the biggest thing that they can do is they can attract new audiences. So the people that, you know, a lot of the times, and I'll say this a lot tonight, a lot of the times as a sport and as a club, and I'm speaking about my own club as well, Pendle Forest Orienteers, we've been guilty of preaching to the converted. You know, we'll put stuff on our own Facebook channels and our own social media channels and we'll promote it. But actually, how many of those people that are our followers or the people, you know, that are aware of our club, how many of them are new people? How many people would actually find the Come and Try It event, you know, if we're just posting it on our own channel? So there are so many people out there, families, fell runners, trail runners that I've talked about before that would love the sport. They just don't know about it yet. And Come and Try It events are great ways to attract new audiences to an event further down the line for your club. As I've said before, they're a great way to advertise the sport and your club in the wider community. You know, there's nothing more noticeable than a club being in a park on a school holiday with your club banners, having checkpoints, having families, having people running around. There's no greater advert for the sport than actually being in an area showcasing what's so fantastic about the sport. A great thing that they've done, and what I talked about at length with the Find Your Way project webinar a couple of weeks ago, is that they're great for building and maintaining relationships. And by that, I mean with people like active partnerships, local authorities, councils, NHS groups. A lot of the Come and Try It events that we do and we have done around the Find Your Way project have involved these kind of communities, these kind of associations. And by working with these associations, for example, active partnerships or Burnley County Council, and putting on a free Come and Try It event for the local community, all of a sudden, as I've talked about at length, and I don't want to repeat myself, but all of a sudden now we're on first name terms with permission officers, we're on first name terms with the park rangers, only because we've done these Come and Try It events. We've offered something for these people for free. And by these people, I mean the local authorities and the people in power, for want of a better word. So that now we become, and I say we as my club, for example, we become a trusted partner. They understand that, you know, we're going to do things to a certain standard. They understand that we run a safe event. It's fun. We'll turn up. We'll deliver for free. Our volunteers, you know, will welcome the community. And now when we go back to them and say, we'd like a PFO event, X date in this area, all of a sudden you still have to fill in the forms, but it's a matter of just necessity rather than trying to kind of beg, you know, for the area or them lacking understanding about what's going on, because you've already done these things through Come and Try It events for their communities as well. And the bottom point as well is a real key one, I think, which I think goes under the radar a little bit, which is added value for members. So thinking about our own club members, the Come and Try It events don't just have to be a white course or a yellow course. You know, they can have these basic low-level entry event courses, but there's no reason why Come and Try It event couldn't also include a red course, a light green course, depending on where you're delivering, which you could also invite your members to for some extra training and some coaching. But you could also train up some people, as we have done in my club, in, the basics of SI, or get used to talking to people, and, event management, organizing as well. So there's that real added value of practicing an event and event situations, scenarios and training, but you're doing it under a Come and Try It event where, as I've just said, permissions, are granted by councils and partnerships, etc. But you can actually get something of benefit that's a bit wider for your club, other than just bringing new people to the activity as well. So this is what I'm going to talk about for a little bit, and as I alluded to at the start of the webinar as well, and attracting new audiences. And this picture was taken a couple of weeks ago at the Quid Games event that I organised alongside with Sports Shoes, and that whole Quid Games event was to attract a new audience to the sport. Trail runners, fell runners, club runners, anybody that wasn't a typical orienteer. And obviously there's been a lot of information that's gone out about the Quid Games, but it was basically designed to be a semi-orienteering event, go along the lines of orienteering, but really low key, simple map, but bringing the event kind of atmosphere and event village and everything. And the whole thing about it was to attract new audiences. And the thing that I want to kind of try and get across today was that this, in essence, was a Come and Try It event, even though it had all of the bling and all the glitz and all of the glamour and a lot of the money, that the sponsors brought in and Sports Shoes brought in very generously. This was still a Come and Try It event aimed at attracting new audiences. So it doesn't have to be just family focused. It doesn't just have to be junior focused. A Come and Try It event can be anything that you want to attract to your club. And that's the point that I want to try and get across in these next few slides, is that it doesn't just have to be a one size fits all for your club. So the picture that you see there is from one of our Street O events, taken last year in Padiham. And I think the biggest thing for me is, who brings the biggest impact for your club? What is the purpose of your Come and Try It event? And as I've just said, it doesn't just have to be focused at the entry level families. It doesn't just have to be focused at a white course. In your club, I'm hoping that you have committee meetings, and if you don't, then I highly recommend them. But there should be a sense of development in there, and there should be at least the conversation of what you would like your club to be looking like in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time, what your club's strengths and weaknesses are, and how you really play to those strengths and weaknesses. And I think our clubs, we've got to be brave, we've got to be honest and say what works for you as your own club. And I think, I'm not afraid to say, for my club, Pendle Forest Orienters, like, we've focused heavily on runners, club runners, trail runners, fell runners, and they are the members that we've attracted in the last 3 years, since we've religiously done a Street O every month and religiously put on red courses. And that was a purposeful decision by the club. We're not the biggest club in the world compared to some, and I realise we're still bigger than some clubs that are out there, but by no means are we a big club in the slightest. And we had the honest conversation of what works best for us. Our members, we're a very close club, where everyone genuinely is friends with each other and everyone genuinely gets on with each other. We've got about 80 members, but we are full of adults, we're full of seniors, we're full of, I think we have a couple of juniors, but our club enjoys socializing. We enjoy doing a laid back club night. We've still got people that will do club nights that are kind of training club nights and skill based and focus based. And, I understand there's clubs out there that are very kind of performance based, which is fantastic. There's clubs out there that have got a fantastic junior system. But for our club and our purpose, we really value the running generation, the fell running generation, the club generation that come into our sport via Street O's and via the red courses. So for our club, it was a purposeful decision that when we have targeted come and try it events that are not in conjunction with the local authorities. So we do work with local authorities and put on kind of junior and family events, but mostly through just kind of keeping them on side and keeping the relationship on side. Most of our events are focused on trying to attract that cohort because it works best for our club. But you might find that your club wants to raise the profile of the sport and increase the membership of the juniors or the families. And you might find that actually, you know, we've got a good junior scene, we've got a couple of club runners that come, but we're actually striving for some volunteers. So then again, the volunteers question comes about, and I'll talk about this on the next slide, is that who will be the cohort of volunteers? Because it's probably not going to be juniors, although there are still, you know, juniors coming up and volunteering, and SYO do a fantastic job of including the juniors in the volunteering, as do many other clubs in terms of like the planning and getting them on SI and everything. But really, who are the volunteers going to be if that is your main aim? So I think that's a big thing for your come and try events. If you're thinking of starting some or carrying them on, who do you want to attract? And then that's the base from where you build the come and try offer that you're going to deliver as a club. So as I've said, once you've had those thoughts, you've got to be kind of really honest about the follow-on procedures and what follows the come and try it event. And as I've just said with my club, you know, we don't have the junior set up at the moment. You know, we don't have enough kind of coaches and volunteers, etc., that can consistently deliver to juniors as we could do 5 or 6 years ago. So for us, it wouldn't make sense to focus our come and try it events at this time. But for you, if you are going to focus them on junior families, it's that question, do you have enough coaches? And I'm talking on the follow-up now after the come and try it event. Do you have training sessions that the juniors or the families can attend? And are there family friendly activities at the club? And if it's kind of like no to any of them, but you're wanting to attract junior and families, then you've really kind of got to sort that out before the come and try it happens, because it's no good these families and these juniors turning up and having an absolutely fantastic time at what you're putting on, and then there being no follow-up, and then thinking, oh, what can we do? Or we'll do another come and try. It's great to have these things in process. You've got, you know, some coaches at the club that can do some junior training, or you've got some sessions lined up, or you've got a teddy bear trail that's coming up in a month's time. It's always great to have something to say, you've enjoyed this, now we've got this. Same with the participants and runners. You know, we religiously at PFO, we do a street O once a month, and we have done for the last 3 years. And it's become a staple for so many people that once a month they come and do our street O. But regular from that, we've had them for the last couple of years now. We have red courses, you know, long orange courses, which, you know, I don't have to explain to anybody on the call here, but they have been fantastic. You know, we had an event at weekend and the red course attracted more than the light green course, you know, and again, it's that, do we have something that attracts the people that we're trying to attract to our come and try it events? You know, are there map runs that, you know, the adults go, I don't want to say adults because obviously children can go out with their parents, but have these people come to our come and try it event who's a runner or a club runner, fell runner, etc. Are there enough map runs around the area to say, right, you've enjoyed this, we've got a red course coming up in a few weeks' time, we've got a street O coming up next Wednesday, but also we've got these map runs as well. So something that they can go away with and think, I enjoyed that, I'm going to look them up again in a couple of weeks' time. And finally, the volunteers. And with this, if this is what your club's trying to get out of come and try events, or ideally down the line, are you attracting the people with enough free time? And, you know, you might want to get some volunteers, but you might want to focus more on juniors and families, when actually, do families have enough free time to spare for volunteers? You know, we're already competing with football and judo and karate and ballet and everything else. Do their parents have enough free time to then come and help you at the start of an event, etc.? Or do we look towards the 40 to 6-year-old age group where they've got a bit more free time and a bit more experience, maybe in other running events? So these are all kind of questions for you to think about in terms of kind of following on, and in terms of kind of who you're highlighting to with your come and try it. So with PFO things and with other clubs as well, there's been some great examples of trying something different. And, we're not trying to kind of dilute the sport of orienteering in the slightest, but we've got to admit that, you know, we're not really going to attract 100% of people from going to their local football match or going to something that they already know and understand into the sport of orienteering without there being something that's maybe a bit more memorable, or has been at least advertised to them that it's going to be memorable. And come and try it's a fantastic way to just do something different, and try something different. It doesn't have to be, an event where it's controlled or, you've got people planning courses that are, TD level 3 to 5 and there's a dog leg there or anything. At the end of the day, we want people to come along, make them feel that it's memorable, it's fun, something easy to understand, and these are just some examples that, clubs have put on around the country that have just been great at, just trying something different. It just causes a conversation. It causes a bit of social media kind of buzz, and rather than just thinking, oh, I've got to plan a white or a yellow course, just try something that's a little bit different. Like, these snooker events where the courses are based on a game of snooker where you visit a red control, you come back and you visit a colour control, etc. The majority of people will understand kind of how to understand a game of snooker, but again, it's just something different. And again, it doesn't need to be difficult. The controls can be really easy to find. You could do a murder mystery or a Cluedo, and the top two are ones that, my club love doing. A murder mystery one could be very easy to do. You deliver a yellow course as ever or a red course, but there could just be clues at them or something, and they've got to collect a clue as they go along, and they're collecting 10 clues. And when they get to the end of a linear course, doesn't even have to be a score course, they put all the clues together and it might reveal a murderer or something like that. And that's something that whenever we put these on as club nights, but they're open to the wider public for free, we attract so many people to our club nights when they are these two, because it's just something that they can bring a mate to. It's something that, we don't even use the word orienteering or anything like that. It's something that is just a bit different, where they've got to just run around and gather clues, for example. One of the slides we'll look at towards the end from Lakeland Orienteering Club, they do a lot of teddy bear trails where, there's control flags and teddy bears out, for example, which is fantastic for the younger children. Red courses we've talked about, I'm a convert myself to a red course at the end of the day. There's so many ways that you can kind of enable people into your come and try it. And one of the biggest things is a relay. We always want people to kind of go back and tell the mates that it's been great. But as you know, you're more likely to try something if you've got a buddy there with you, if you've got your family there with you, or if you've got your sister with you, or if you've got your best friend with you. So why not do a relay for a come and try it where, your friend goes round, does a course, comes back, you go round and do the course back to front or whatever. Just, it can be really, really simple. But by giving that option of bring a mate, get involved, bring 2 or 3 of you, all of a sudden now it's that I will if you will, and again, it's something that's really easy to deliver. One of the things I will say about come and try events is add value to it. It's hard enough trying something new. So if we put ourselves in a position of someone that's never done orienteering before, they might never have heard of orienteering before, but they've seen something on Facebook and they think, okay, I might go along to that. And it says it's a 1 kilometre course, but actually it's a half an hour drive. Can I justify that? The great way to kind of attract even more people or make people feel it's worthwhile coming to a come and try event is to add value. There's so many clubs these days that are adding a maze into events, let alone come and try events. But if you can just add a maze in again, it's another 20, 30 minutes that can keep people occupied, adults and juniors. Another thing, and there's quite a few clubs that do fantastic examples of these multiple courses. Do you have a set of white courses or yellow courses, but could you maybe do 3 or 4 of them so that people are not just turning up to one course and then going away and thinking, oh, that was good, but it was only 10 minutes, keep them there for 40 minutes, make them do 4 courses. It can be 2 courses that they just go around anti-clockwise, clockwise. This one's a big one, and it is, a really simple thing to do, and it doesn't need to cost the earth whatsoever, but Could you do a prize draw to gather people's details? And, it might be that people are turning up on the day, and people are always a bit skeptical these days of sharing the details and what you're going to do with these. But if you say that, we'll just use it to send out further information about our events, about our club, won't be shared wider, but we'll put you into a draw for a £20 Amazon voucher or a £15 sports shoes voucher. People will give you the details because of that. And all of a sudden now you've got 30 people, 10 families, whatever, that you've now got information of simply because you've done a £20 draw or free entry to, events for a year or something, however you want to work it. Sounds fickle, but sweet stickers and certificates always work. The kids, big and young, love stickers, certificates, sweets. A simple kind of investment in that is worth its weight in gold. And going on Vistaprint, for example, it takes 10 minutes to kind of draw something up on Canva. And I know Alex has gone over using Canva before, but it really is a great marketing tool for clubs. Really simple to use. You can, oh, no, I spelled it wrong. Never mind. You can download a sticker template from Canva, upload that straight to Vistaprint, print off how many you want, and we've probably printed off 250 stickers for maybe £30-40 or something. But actually having people gone around the park wearing stickers or something, again, it's just that little bit of added value. And as I talked about in the Find Your Way project, joining with an existing event or a park facilities is massive. So, if there's an event going on, it might be, Burnley Community Day or Talk in the Park or something. If you know that something's going on and further on in far enough ahead in advance, adding in a maze there or adding in a course, if you've got the area mapped or something, you've already got a willing audience there as well, so that all of a sudden you're getting people that would be there that may not have turned up anyway, but you've got a willing audience to try a couple of courses. So last few bits on these before I go on to some kind of behaviour model is the advertising of them. And I mentioned this at the start, is that we need to make sure we're not getting into the practice of preaching to the converted. I've seen so many fantastic adverts that are being kind of created on Facebook these days, Instagram, which is absolutely brilliant, but they're just sitting on club pages, and we will put them on PFO pages, don't get me wrong, but then we share these within local groups. The Alkin Coats event that we had on Saturday was shared within what's on in Colne, Colne's the local area, what's on in Lancashire, family things to do, etc. With a little bit of two-liner beforehand saying, fancy trying something different this Saturday, full details on this, exciting adventure courses, with a copy of the link to it. So without sounding harsh, your page is not enough to attract a new audience, because that audience aren't on your page to begin with. We had so many people that have liked our page and followed our page, PFO's page, since the Alkin Coats event and since it's gone on that Colne thing, but you've got to think a step ahead and not be afraid to put it on different kind of web pages as well. And I know Alex has talked about that previously, and on our Club Hub as well, it goes through the processes if you're not too sure of how to share it in wider pages as well. Keep it short and friendly, exciting. I know it sounds really obvious, but I still see a couple of posts that are kind of like War and Peace, and it's like, I love the sport, I love the sport. However, I zone out reading them, and this is just an example of one that we've got coming up with Blackburn and Darwen Council during the half term, and I think that's all that needs to happen. We only created this on Canva, free adventure courses and activities, find the checkpoints located in the park. And again, it links into the next point, imagery that explains more than writing. The youngster there running with a map, so let's kind of move away from that kind of beautiful pictures of the area, which are fantastic, but taking a step back and being that person that doesn't know anything about orienteering. You might have put a beautiful picture on of Alkin Coats Park, for example, but it doesn't show an old flag, doesn't show anybody moving with a map. It doesn't show anything about the sport. For me, I'm just looking at a picture of Alkin Coats Park and I'm not understanding. Yes, there might be adventure courses, but so think about your imagery as well. And I keep going back to the Club Hub, but there's so many fantastic images. This image is on there of people moving with a map, or people might be stood with a map, but they're stood next to a control. So think about your imagery, think about your words, think about kind of, we keep saying steering away from the jargon and just keep it simple. You can always put a link on these posts that you're doing that send them to further information on your website. So keep it brief, keep it smiley, keep it exciting. And think about selective roles as well. So even within my club, we're very conscious of our strengths and our weaknesses. We're very conscious of who is brilliant at meeting and greeting. We're very conscious about who would rather sit behind SI. We're very conscious about who would rather just send out emails to members, and I appreciate we can't always pick and choose the volunteers that are available for the come and try events, but where possible, and I know this is a really obvious thing to say, but it doesn't always happen, try and have that confident person, try and have that smiley person that's the first person to greet people coming to the park. As I keep saying, it takes such a lot of guts to try something new in the first place. When was the last time you tried something new, totally new, that you didn't really understand about? Think about turning up to somewhere where someone was maybe a little bit grumpy or a little bit awkward or whatever, and now you're thinking, oh, I don't really feel like I belong here. Having that warm person greet you, make you feel that you're welcome, and it doesn't matter if you don't know anything in the slightest, because we do, and we're here to help you, and we want you to have fun. Who's the best in your club, or who's the best that you've got available to be that first person that's greeting people? If you've got 2 or 3, even better. And think about the banners on the day as well. You can attract people, on the day with good imagery, good banners. Having the best kind of advertisement is having people running about the park with a map, being happy, or walking about the park, with a pram, etc. So make it feel that people are going to miss out by not doing your activity. So the last couple of points on this, as I mentioned, come and try events are great for building partnerships. Another event that we're doing in the half term, as you can see here, we've got Beat the Street, who are our partners on it as well, Pendle Leisure Trust, who are our partners on it as well. Don't get me wrong, they are doing absolutely nothing on the come and try event apart from advertise it for us. However, because they're advertising it for us jointly, all of a sudden around these areas anyway, I'd like to think Pendle Forest are, but Beat the Street are a trusted organisation. Pendle Leisure Trust are a trusted organisation, and they're the guys that are saying, go along, there's free adventure courses, there's free activities. So building partnerships where they can share it as well, as we've alluded to many times, is really important. We've talked about permissions, we've talked about training for club members, but also as well, these things can lead into other things, new permanent orienteering courses. We've had clubs that have put on come and try events for clubs, for partnerships, should I say, for councils, and have said, we'd love to do this. However, we don't have an up-to-date map. Could you maybe pay for map updates? And you'd be surprised how much you can get out of an active partnership or a council if you say, we would love to, however, we need your help. And it could be maybe remapping the area. It could be mapping a new area. It could be getting a permanent orienteering course in there that says, what about the legacy of it? And that's a great word to use with people like active partnerships and local authorities, is they are all about legacy, and they have to be because of their funding as well. So if there's one key word take away tonight, it's legacy. As we've said before, it doesn't just have to be youngsters. It doesn't just have to be families. The picture in the background was a come and try event that Sealox did last year with Up and Running, and they invited Silver along, the head torch group. These come and try events can be just adult focused, runner focused, running clubs and running shops such as Up and Running, Lincolnshire Runner. There's so many kind of independent and branded running shops out there, and even pubs that have running clubs attached to them. I can think of maybe 3 or 4 around where I am. They've already got a captive audience that already meet on a Tuesday evening between 4:30 and 6:30 or whatever time. If you say to them, can we do club night for one night? This is what we'll do. More than likely you will have a positive response. And there, all of a sudden, you've got 30 people that, want to turn up. They want to be active. They're a captive audience. And, in this instance, Up and Running, for example, they turned into sponsors for Sealox City Race Eurotour. There's that kind of partnership as well, a conversation of, oh, you've done this for us in our running club, how about you throw us a couple of head torches? And believe it, and I've spoken about this before, brands do have the money to do this, and just by putting on a come and try it event with something like a club, with a running club or running shop. We talked about half programs in the Find Your Way project quite a lot. They're holiday and food programs, so they go on throughout Britain. Well, throughout England, they're called a different name in Scotland. But these are free activities and school holidays that the council and the local authorities provide for children that have got free school meals. You'll find them on the Active Partners or the council websites if you just Google holiday and food activities in your area. They are always on the lookout for partners to do free activities with them over the school holidays, always. And, anyone that was in the webinar the other night, our recognised delivery partners, the Orienteering Company, the Outdoor Classroom, Enrich, cross curricular, these are doing fantastic work within the schools. Maybe a club can work with them to then put on an orienteering competition to kind of have that link between all of the fantastic learning that's going on with the schools, take it into a local park, experience orienteering out of the school as well. So these are just a couple of things that you can think of when you're thinking, who can I link in with for the come and try it events? So this is a well-known kind of theory. You might wonder what it's got to do with orienteering, but I think it's important, as I kind of keep alluding to put ourselves into that position where you're not an orienteer, you've just happened across this on Facebook, yeah, you might want to try something new, but is it for me? And I think if we understand collectively as a sport a bit more about the COM-B model for behaviour change, we can start building our come and try it events and kind of like really playing into this, because the behaviour change that we want at the end of the day is for people to take part in the sport. We want people to participate in the sport. And ultimately, yes, we want people to become members. But at the end of the day, they will never become a member without learning to enjoy the sport. And how do we get to that part of behaviour change? So in the model, the C belongs to capability, and it's physical, psychological. If you don't feel that you are capable of doing this orienteering, or however it's dressed up on social media, or however it's dressed up on the poster in the local cafe, you will never try it. So how do we get across that orienteering isn't complicated? It's something that you will enjoy, and it's something that's achievable, because without people believing that, you will dismiss it straight away. And again, it goes back to imagery and language. Use the words adventure, explore, use the word checkpoint. We don't need to use the word controls. People can learn about the word control once they get into the sport, or two catties down the line, or at the come and try it event. But think about, if you're reading something and you're reading get to the first control, well, what's a control? But people will understand get to the first checkpoint. So just alter your language slightly. Think about the capability of distances and difficulty. If we're going back to families, then obviously white courses, yellow courses. But again, let's not name them white or yellow. We could name them short, easy, family. But also, are you trying to attract fell runners or club runners? Well, then they will not come for a 1 kilometre course. They will not come for a 2 kilometre course. So again, think about the distances and difficulty of that. It doesn't mean take the difficulty right up to TD5 level and start making it a blue and a brown style course where they'll never find anything and they're bashing through brambles. I don't want to do that, and I love the sport. So newcomers are definitely not going to want to do that. So it's all about understanding what they would want. If a fell club round here, they're training on a Tuesday night, they're typically doing 5 or 6 miles. How can we translate that into a come and try event? All right, it might not be 5 or 6 miles, but they'll definitely come for maybe 3 or 4 miles. So then that tells us, let's do a red course, or let's do a score course, for example. So it's all about that capability. So the next part, and the bottom is just a quote of perception of not having the capability to carry out a particular behaviour would negatively impact their motivation to do it. And that's what people need to be. They need to be motivated to come along. The next part's the opportunity. So we've designed what we want to do. We're going to do, for example, a red course or a score course with a local running club that meet every Wednesday at Cast in Rottenstall, 6 o'clock, and they do. But then we decided that actually only our volunteers are available on a Sunday night or a Tuesday evening. but we're still going to try and attract them anyway. So again, it's that times, and I appreciate your volunteer workload, and I appreciate we're only available when we're only available, but try best where possible to fit in with what's best, where you're going to attract the best audience. And I know it sounds really obvious, but if we're still putting on come and try it events that are going to clash with Saturday morning football if you're trying to attract the kids, or, Saturday morning park runs. And I appreciate some clubs have gone to park run to advertise and to do some stuff afterwards, which is great. But if there's prior knowledge that you're going to be there at park run, for example, and you're going to do a course afterwards next week, that will work much better than if you're just turning up on a Saturday morning and saying, we're here in the park, come and try it, because people have probably got to go and pick the kids up. People have already said that they're going to meet so-and-so in Burnley for a brew at 10 o'clock. So if you are going to do stuff like that, I would recommend prior knowledge of a couple of weeks before, but try and fit in where possible, where's best. School holidays, you're always going to have a bigger audience, a bigger potential audience, than if you're just trying to crack it on a random Tuesday, dinner time. You're going to have no kids there whatsoever. The location, is it somewhere that's familiar? It's somewhere that people, yeah, I feel like I'm capable of doing this. And actually, it's at Thompson Park, and I quite know Thompson Park quite well, so I can't get lost too much. Rather than sending them off in the middle of nowhere because you think that's a good orienteering area, forget about orienteering area for now. That can come in, 2, 3 months, 4, 5 months down the line, when they've got a bit more confidence about themselves. And as I alluded to in the Find Your Way project, what you might not think is a good area to orienteering because it's too small to hold a level C event, or we can just about squeeze a level D event, it might actually be perfect for a come and try event because it's small enough where people feel confident, families feel confident that they can get around a course in 20 minutes. There's loads of handrails, even though that they won't know the handrails, but there's lots of stuff that is actually really recognizable. Make it safe for people to come. And I don't mean safe as in, there's no road crossings, but feel safe for them to turn up and feel confident enough to turn up. The frequency, as I said before, I appreciate you might not have the capability of a club to do something every school holiday or once a month, but if you have something regular, people will start to look forward to it, and people will think, actually, it's time for this now. So it might be that you can only do it once a quarter. However, if people know that you're going to do something in Easter, the school holidays in summer, and something in October, they already have that in the back of their mind. Partners already have it in the back of their minds. Everything tends to kind of take care of itself. So try and keep the frequency where possible, and try and, don't just do like a one-hit wonder. Try and do something where it might be a 2-hit wonder, 2-month wonder or something. And the frequency is really good to just keep the name of the sport and your club out there. And the availability as well. And by that, I mean, have you got a map run that you can leave in the area so that, if people couldn't make it to your come and try it event, they can still try something, and you've explained that through social media, and you've explained how to do it. If people have come to your come and try it event, can you then leave a map run that's a bit longer or a bit different, or something that they can then go back to a safe space where they understand where they are and what they did, but then explore a bit further, and there's plenty of times when we've left spare maps at a cafe or a ranger station. We're never going to use them again as a club, probably, and people might not have the controls out there. However, again, it's how you advertise it. You've missed us, but these are the maps. Have a wander, see where the checkpoints would have been if you would have turned up, for example. So just little things like that can keep it fresh in people's minds. So one of the last things in the COMB model is M, which is motivation. And what we've got to remember is that people are likely not to turn up to something unless there's a motivation to do it. What's in it for them at the end of the day? Is it fitness? Are they just turning up because it's free? And that's perfectly fine. Families, turning up because it's something free to do in the school holiday. That's perfectly fine. Do the activity with them, show them go orienteering, show them that there's free map runs out there. They might be turning up to improve the skills. Fellow runners might be turning up to improve the compass skills or the nav skills. They might be turning up because it's social. It's just something to do with the mates or the families or anything. So it's really important to understand what their desires are. And this might come 2 or 3 come and try it's down the line where you've used their feedback, you've asked them why they're here, you've understood why they're here, and then you've gone back and thought, well, actually, a lot of people just came because they wanted to laugh with the mates and they're not really interested in becoming a TD5 orienteer, but actually they might be a red orienteer and actually they might turn up to a couple of events. So it's really important to understand their motivation as well as your motivation. And I think, sometimes as a club, we've got to understand our wants, kind of come secondary to what they want. We as a club could want to attract all these club runners and everything, but actually families are turning up because they want something. And then there's a saying that I always go back to, go where the energy is, so it's really kind of, where's the energy? What do they want? How can we mold our offer to them and adapt it to them as well? And, with different groups come different desires. Running groups will have different desires to scouts, will have different desires to families. Who are you more likely to attract? Why are they here? And how can you change your offering to them to make sure that they enjoy what they're trying to get out of it as well? And where possible, try and use it as some training for them, for a targeted event. The Up and Running Come and Try It event was all, and a couple of events that Sealock did post this with Mosley Running Club, which the running club that you can see there are in Oldham. But they then did a follow-on couple of Come and Try It events with map runs for the Mosley Running clubs. And what Sealock did brilliantly well with these set of running groups was they really tried to attract them to their Salford Quays City race in September, and it worked. They branched out to them May, June, July, August, gave them a bit of confidence, gave them a bit of training, and said, we've got this urban event coming up, it's no different, and really explained it to them well. Are your Come and Try It events priming people to get to a targeted event, whether it's an urban, whether it's coming along to a street, or whether it's coming along to your Saturday event in a few weeks' time? Giving people that confidence and those skills will create people the behavior change that you're wanting. And the target behavior, what do we want? We want them enjoying the sport. That's first and foremost. We want them taking part again, whether it's at a Come and Try It event, whether it's downloading a map off, a permanent orienteering course. We want them telling their friends. We want them telling the family. There's no bigger kind of advertisement and kind of brilliant way of sharing the sport than word of mouth. So-and-so enjoyed it. It must be good if so-and-so enjoyed it. And then ultimately, like I said, we want them joining a club. And the reason why I've got this picture, this is obviously my club, Pendle Forest Orienteers, and the person on the left here, Sam, she was one of the first people to make kind of this leap from the local fell running club, Trawden, one of the local fell running clubs, not the only one. And Sam came along to a couple of Come and Try It events. She came along to a couple of club nights, which are open for non-members to join. And Sam really enjoyed them, really got a lot out of them. And Sam is our kind of biggest advertisement for Trawden. She went back, beating the drum, saying, I've done street all, it's fantastic. Let's, and from Sam solely, I keep joking that we need to kind of pay her a bit of a salary. We've had so many members that have joined from that trail running club, from that fell running club, simply because they enjoyed it. They took part again. They told the friends, and now all of a sudden, Karen in the middle, Paula at the end. I can confidently say that they would probably never have tried orienteering if it wouldn't have been for Sam. And Sam would probably never have tried orienteering if it would have been for our Come and Try It event. So they do have a longer effect down the line. A couple of things I want to round off with. There's been some huge kind of steps forward with some local clubs to me that have kind of really upped the game with Come and Try It events, and with the way that they kind of put their outreach out there to get people new trying the sport. The first one's D-Side, and I did talk about them quite a bit in the Find Your Way kind of roundup that I had a couple of weeks ago. And Ian Bell kindly sent this over, and I see Ian's on the call tonight. And D for me are a real kind of success story. They don't have a development officer. They don't have kind of anyone that's purely dedicated to it. And D were really honest at the start when they joined the Find Your Way project a couple of years ago that they'd recently closed down their schools league, even though it was successful and they were wanting to restart it again, but they were really lacking confidence in marketing, with outreach, with how to attract the younger kind of audience back into both the school leagues, but also back into D events as well. And as I explained in the webinar a couple of weeks ago, there was some social media training that went on with D. They did a lot of come and try it events with MapRun as part of the Find Your Way project, and really kind of developed themselves within the club, and I receive the emails every now and again, and they always bring a smile to my face because I've seen how much they've changed in the last 18 months. The way that they market their events now, they've done a couple of events in Delamere the past couple of weeks, which again, I've had score courses on that. They're not only kind of orienteering events, but they've been aimed at attracting newcomers by different kind of courses. But the emails that they're sending out, they're very warm, they're very welcoming. There's no kind of jargon in there. There's, it's very simple, and it explains what it needs to explain. And this kind of snippet here is one that I've took from my own inbox, my private inbox, that was sent out a few months ago that they sent, so he said, that they use kind of like a funnel, and kind of this is how they're kind of trying to attract people, that they're trying to get the awareness first of all, and they're doing that through marketing. I'll let you kind of, do you want to explain this yourself, because you sent this over to me? I can't see you, Ian, if you want to come off mute, if you do want to, or if you're happy for me to explain it.
Sorry, couldn't find the button.
Sorry.
No, you were doing a good job. I didn't want people to feel that we had it cracked by any means. We're trying different things. Some things have worked, some things haven't. We're continuing with the things that do work and abandoning the things that don't. We're trying our best to try new things. There is a danger of trying too many things too quickly and thinking, well, that didn't work, and then move on to the next one, which is a danger. So I think being consistent, we do run what is now the legacy of Find Your Way, the park navs. We call them park navs, and we do aim to have them at every school holiday, which isn't too onerous, and they're relatively easy to set up and for one or two people to run them. And we've got a number of people that are keen on doing that. And we're also offering free yellow courses on our sprints. So we're building on the things that we feel have worked. And I could talk you through some of the things that haven't worked that we no longer do. But I think it's important to be realistic about how much you can do, because you've said it before, Kay, that we're a volunteer club, and we have to support our volunteers as much as support our new members as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, I honestly can't praise the enough. Like, and I've said this to you as well. Like, the progress that they have done in the past 18 months of learning, and as you said, like, dropping what's not working and everything, and it's, as you said, like, we're trying to get that balance of let's do come and try events, but also not put something extra on our membership that we might not have time for. And I think they are a fantastic example of doing something that's regular, doing something that's relatively stress-free, as I say that. I don't mean that it's stress-free, but but then in their communities, they're known to be doing something within the school holidays now, or it's more than likely that they will be doing something in the school holidays. So thanks for that, Ian. So the last few slides, I'm not going to go through them all. There's about 7 or 8 slides that have been kindly sent over by Kath Savage at Lakeland Orienteering Club, and Kath is a club development officer funded by the Orienteering Foundation. However, as ever, Joe will send out all of the slides afterwards for you to sit and peruse, and Kath has really gone into some great details here on the following slides about their offer. Lakeland, as I'm sure many of you are aware, they've done some fantastic newcomer They've done some fantastic family activities. Myself and Kath met pretty on early into the Find Your Way project, and I chatted through what we'd done in Pendle Forest, especially with the shop trails, which Kath alludes to on a couple of slides time. That there's so many kind of ideas within these slides that Locke have done, and Kath has, I don't want to say Kath has got the time to do it. She probably does not have the time to do it, as well as being working in education as well. But it goes to show that what that club development role could look like if you have someone that's doing it as fantastically as Kath's doing as well. So I'll go over the slides just very briefly, but as I said, you'll be able to access these in your own time and have a look through. But Kath's really kind of tackled this in the past couple of years, and they've just gone from strength to strength. And I think that, again, what the great thing that Lakeland have done is that they are regular activities. There's something happening probably every month with Lakeland, probably even more often, especially within the summer holidays as well. So you can see different things. There's lots of kind of families that have been attracted. Lakeland are obviously quite a big club. So it may be argued that they have more volunteers available than your club as well. On the next slide, you can see that they've done some of the town trails. This is something that we did in Pendle Forest, which I talked to Kath about a couple of years ago, which were fantastically popular. And we just simply worked with local shops around Rottenstall and Burnley, for example. Can we put a poster in your window? We've talked about this before, but done a simple, Google Maps, as you can see here. Kath's named this one the Naughty Elf Trail map. And you can do these for any occasions. You can do an Easter egg one, you can do a Halloween one, like we've done many times at PFO. And these are different ways to just get people out orienteering, wandering around with a map. What they've done as well is they've done a lot of kind of family workshops. As Kath says on the second points there, they're located near populated areas, so people either don't have that far to travel, or there's people milling about anyway that you can kind of just grab and just say, do you fancy trying this? Have a go. It's only going to take you 10 minutes, and that kind of telling them how long it's going to take, that it's free, probably, hopefully, really kind of breaks down that barriers of, oh, I've not got time for it. If you're going to tell people, and if you're honest with people, that it's only going to take 10 minutes and it's free, you're more than likely going to have someone go, actually, yeah, go. And they will stay for 30 or 40 minutes, So simple things like that. And Kat's there very kindly put a lot of kind of hints and tips about what they did. Again, she says certificates, stickers, lollies for participating. It's very fickle, but it's very true. They do go a long way. What Locke have done brilliantly is they've done a lot of map runs. They've done a lot of map run challenges. And again, as we've talked about, there's lots of kind of families on these pictures, but the terrain in the Lake District that Locke have to their benefit, you can put on an orange course in the Lake District, and that would be probably, a blue course somewhere else, simply because of the difficulty of the terrain. So having those anytime orienteering sessions and availability as well have really kind of helped embed Locke offer of come to the family workshops, but then we've got all these map runs for you to try as well in the local area. What you've probably seen is that Locke are very good at promoting. Again, you can read these in your own leisure, but Kath goes into a bit of kind of hints and tips on how they do it, whether it's sharing info across social media, creating a Facebook event. And I know Alex has been through that, and there's some learnings and understanding how to do that on Facebook. But it's great to create a Facebook event because it actually pops up reminders onto your group as well every now and again. And what Lakeland did, they offered free membership and junior entries. So again, taking that hit monetary wise, albeit a relatively small one, but it makes people feel that they've got added value to join in the club or to come into activities anyway. What is a fantastic thing that they've done, and I know a lot of clubs have reached out to Kath, is Kath kind of took the BSOA Explorer Challenge that was already and is already available from the British Schools Orienteering Association, and kind of put her own twist on it. She kind of got the badges, but came up with like innovative ways of how to collect them, and created challenge logs, created scores. She's got here a spreadsheet, leaderboard. All this is kind of like a lot of work, but you can see the kind of effects that it's had. They've had club kit for all ages to create a sense of belonging. So it's that kind of real incentive of what is going to keep kids, their juniors, their families, what's going to keep them coming back. And one of the last slides. So again, they've attracted families, they've attracted children, they've done all these fantastic things. And what about the next step? So what Cat, and Lakeland have done is the skills award. So, they've got logbooks for, white, yellow, orange. They've got logbooks for volunteers. They've worked a lot with Karina Lake at SBOC. She's herself down in Wales has done some absolutely fantastic things with Swansea Bay as well. So please don't be afraid. And I don't want to put any extra work on CAF or anything, but please don't be afraid to reach out to clubs that have done something and just ask them, what worked well, what didn't work well. Have you got any resources? Could you send me a PDF? Have you got a poster that we could use or something? And again, I keep going back to our club hub, but there's so many resources on the British Orienteering Club Hub, as in posters that you can use, images that you can use, how to understand Instagram. There's so many how-to guides that are on there now that collectively, as a sport and as a club and as members, we can all help each other out here. So the last point, they've moved on to kind of events. So you can see that real progression there. They've moved on from a yellow in an urban, which is relatively unheard of, but they've still kind of thought about, can we introduce juniors? And, don't worry, there's not kids just running around the streets on their own, that they are with families, etc. But they've took that kind of real stepped progress into there. And, Lakeland terrain isn't easy. Have a look at this map, and yet still the progressions that they've made within the club, all stemming from a come and try it event, at the end of the day, have got families and children orienteering on this terrain, so as I said, and as I go back to at the start, it's what is important for your club. As I said, my club at the moment, we don't have the internal kind of membership to have these fantastic progressions and bring the juniors along to orienteering like that. But at the same time, we've got an absolutely fantastic club that's full of fell runners, club runners, 18 to 40-year-olds that like orienteering and then like, socializing afterwards. But that works for our club. This works for Lakeland. And it's about, what do you want for your club? What do you want from your come and try event? Who do you want to attract to the sport? And not only attract to the sport, who do you want to keep in the sport as well? And as you can see there, urban map run fund for families, there's so many ways round to keeping people that you attract in the sport. So I will stop sharing, and then that will be me.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kay. I'll definitely make sure to get the slides out for all those information packed in. I was leaning into my screen trying to read it all, but that was an absolutely brilliantly informative presentation, and I'm sure that we'll have a good few questions coming up. Just as a reminder for everybody, if you do want to ask a question, you can use either the chat, the Q&A, or you can use the raise hand function, which I'll be able to call upon you to unmute. I've got one to start us off whilst hopefully a couple others come in. And the first one was earlier from Stuart, and it was quite a while back. It was about 7:30. But it was a question saying that he's been to a couple of PFO events and he had to SI pre-enter. Is that not a barrier to attracting new people?
We haven't found it as a barrier. I mean, we're talking about come and try it events at the moment. So we're talking about kind of being available on the day and giving enough information and everything. And, it's not that we don't advertise kind of entry on the day at Pendle Forest Orienteers. We do welcome kind of walk-ups and we do allow that in. But I think, that not the danger, but I think the kind of problem with offering just on the day entry is that, first of all, you kind of like, you've got the age-old problem of how many maps do you print and all that kind of thing. But it's that kind of data collection thing as well, is that with people like SI entries and Fabian and everything like that, with people that are pre-entering and you've got all the details and the email addresses, it's that pre-information that you can send out to people. It's the important post information that I still think is vital. Like I do many, many, many events, entering many different clubs events, and I still don't get sent final details, emails. I don't get sent anything afterwards that even says thanks for coming, and I think that's something that we do really strongly at PFO, but via the SI entries kind of system is that we always send out a post-event email that says, thanks for coming. If you enjoyed it, these are our next events. However, these are anytime orienteering events. These are local events coming up. You know, we really try and push the sport and promote the sport via these entry systems that, you know, these pros and cons, we've never kind of found a barrier. I think it's all within the promotion of the events, as, you know, pre-enter by this date, and we leave entries open until the night before of the event. So in a perfect world, you'd offer kind of full-on entry on the day, but still it's a fine balancing act, you know, and clubs do offer full entry on the day, and clubs close their events a week before as well. So I think it's kind of, you know, it's what works best for your club again.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's I think it's definitely important to point of throughout all this is, you know, some things will work for your club and other things won't, and there's that much information that it's always good to be able to try as well. Do we have any more questions for Kate, or is she getting off very lightly this evening? I can see one. Oh, Roger's in. Perfect. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I've been eating my dinner, so I thought I'd better be offline. Kay, in the D slide towards the bottom of the triangle, the upside down triangle, it says evaluation and then membership. So what is actually going on there? What are you evaluating?
Ian, do you want to answer that?
Sorry?
Hello, Roger. It's Ian here.
Hello, Ian. Yeah.
I'm currently in Braemar Youth Hostel, and some children went by and I missed it. So I apologise. I'm in a corridor.
Pretty chilly.
Could you repeat your question?
There's on the left-hand side of that slide that Kay showed, with steps through to membership. Towards the bottom, it says evaluation and then membership. And I was just wondering what sort of evaluation that is.
I suppose the way we look at or certainly I look at the funnel is to try and put some structure behind it, because we've done bits at various stages, and it's to have that sort of lateral thinking. So the evaluation goes on, you know, has this been effective? Do we continue with it? Yes, we do, for consistency, if it's justified. One of the things we tried, for instance, was before our events, was emailing the heads of local schools. So you go on Google, find out who the head is. Dear Emma, we were having an event in your area. Could you tell your children about it? Complete waste of time, took a long time, had absolutely no impact. So we evaluated that and stopped that. So that's what that evaluation bit is, I suppose. There isn't a formal structure where we do a clinical trial or whatever. It's kind of try and adopt a rule of thumb, basically. If people think it's working, it works. If people don't think it's working, we'll do something else.
Yeah. So you were trying various things and you worked out what was the most successful for yourself.
Yes. As I said, the schools didn't work. One of the things that has been successful, so our mailing list used to be just for club members, so we opened it up to non-members, and our mailing list has gone from 100 to 700, and we, at each event, any independents, we add them to our mailing list. MailChimp, they can unsubscribe at any time. They tend not to. So we've got up to 700. So there's we only have 130 something members. So you can see there's a lot of interested parties. And it goes back to what Kay was saying. It's about, trying to encourage them to and to communicate with them. So we send out one email for each event, saying where they're going to be, what, how to enter, very little. And then at the bottom is our list of forthcoming events. And that's all we do. We don't try and overkill it. And even doing that on a consistent basis, I'll hold my hand up and occasionally I'll forget to do one. So I think you have to be really realistic about our volunteer group. I've got somebody who's really good and half my age, and I'm handing it on to her. So Penny is brilliant, and she's been doing some of our Instagram things, and I have to say that was beyond me. I've learned some things, but I couldn't quite get my head around that. So that's something that, again, people tell us they see it and it's recognizing. So being consistent with that and try making it as easy as possible. Doing the thing that I was not a Facebook user, but we had a need to try and advertise our events. We did learn from the Find Your Way how to use Canva. It was a new thing to me. We put a few together, started advertising them on Facebook. Again, going to the local Facebook community groups, who've got about 5,000 plus, putting them on there, our Canvas, to try and drum up a bit of interest. And again, particularly for the park navs, or the formerly Find Your Way, people say that they, the children and families that come along, and we have about 100 that come to each of our sort of school holiday events. We put on one every school holiday in Marbury Park, and we try and do them in Frodsham. We got ideas to do them in Liverpool, but I can't find somebody to do it yet. But trying to be realistic about how much we can do, because it's easy for people to lose heart about it's not having an impact. Well, let's just give it up and move on to the next thing. Did that answer your question, Roger?
Yeah. No, I didn't expect a formal evaluation, but I think it is appropriate to work out what works for you, because all clubs are slightly different. And I mean, Kay was saying that she has a certain demographic in her club, and other clubs will have a certain demographic, have different catchment areas, different people to tap into. I mean, there's so many variables involved that it's quite likely it's going to be slightly different for all clubs.
I think that's true, Roger. We historically have always said it's children and families, because children and families grow up and become orienteers, is what we hope. And we're desperately short of juniors, and that's our principal focus from a purely vested interest, I suppose, point of view. But we have, you see, you question, sometimes you question yourself, why are we doing it this way? And sometimes you change and sometimes you continue. But I think it's important to just keep encouraging activity, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's rewarding when it happens.
Yes, but I would say it's very frustrating, because most things don't seem to work if you judge it purely by membership. You can put on loads of events with your active partnerships, and people will spend lots of time, and you'll be doing somebody else's work. So the reason for having the funnel is to give us a bit of a structure that is for D-side Orienteering Club. We want to continue. We want to be able to continue to put on events and continue to develop as a club. And I think sometimes you have to say no to some things that aren't necessarily in your orbit.
Good. Yeah, many thanks. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for the question.
Thank you, Roger, and thank you, Ian, both very much. I've got one more question from Andrew at DFOC that says, we do come and try events, but we charge a small fee, and the general feeling is that it's a reasonably inexpensive sport. When free runs are offered, what is the experience of those people converting to paying participants at a later date?
I think this kind of depends on your kind of whether you're collecting this data or not. It's it's quite easy to find out if you're collecting all of the data at come and try it events, and then kind of marrying that with people that are actually converting to, like, as you say, participants at a later date, and you can send them simple surveys and, have they enjoyed it, and, has your perception changed, etc. So I think it's easy to understand that from your own point of view in terms of gathering that data yourself. But, there's no reason why come and try it events don't have to be, free. They don't have to be, they can be charged. And, there's an argument that says, with somebody paying a nominal fee whatsoever, that they actually they hold it more to value, that there's a cost to it as well. So, I mean, a lot of the kind of come and try events where you're working with local authorities and local councils, they do tend to be free because they have got a certain cohort of their community they're trying to attract, and especially with the Find Your Way project, as I've already mentioned about the areas that we worked in with the Find Your Way project, and that it was publicly funded by Sport England anyway. We couldn't charge for those events. So I think, as we've always, there's said there's a bigger conversation about kind of the cost of orienteering, but I think, when you see local families or local people paying £35 to do a 10k race, etc., paying £5 or £6 to do a level D event, and a lot of clubs these days, if they don't, they should just offer, a family just needs to have one entry, and that's 6 or 7 people going around a course, and that's £6 or £7, for example. So, it's not, I think it doesn't, I can't see it kind of being a barrier to getting people to join the sport. If you're offering free come and try events, so then charging them £5, etc. I think, I don't have any children myself these days, but I'm sure like a ballet lesson or a swimming session these days is probably double that price per week. So again, it goes back to what you're offering as a club. If you're just offering one white course where they're turning up and it's done within 10 minutes and nobody's been friendly to them and nobody sent them anything afterwards saying you can do this map run afterwards, and it's all about the value that they feel they're getting, and that's why people are paying £35 for a 10k these days, because that £35 paying for a finish funnel and a t-shirt and a medal and probably a bit of a DJ. So if you are taking that step to kind of get them to pay to then come to something, at Footscray or wherever, then what are you giving them for £5, £6, £7, £8? Are they getting a better experience? So I think that's on the club to kind of justify with your actions, how you can take that bridge of you've done something for free or you've done something for £2. This is £8, but it's £8 because you're getting this experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Kate. I'm just having a quick scan of the chat and I can't see any more. I can see a Roger hand up. Go on, Roger.
Well, I like a conversation. This question and answer is fine, but it's nice to have a conversation. I remember, Kay, when you talked to us about Find Your Way, you said that, I don't know, perhaps it was only one person, but you said somebody asked, do I have to join a club? And it was just apropos of the question you've answered, in terms of what attracts people and what puts them off. Was that do I have to join a club question? Is that a widespread phenomenon, or is that just a one-off, and normally people are not too worried about that sort of thing? They just like to come along and do it.
I think it's, again, how it's marketed and how it's delivered to people. Myself and Howard, who's on the course on the call, we go to National Outdoor Expos. We go to a lot of kind of things where we're facing the public that come over to us and say, I tried this sport as a kid, or I've been meaning to get into it. And a lot of the questions that we do get asked, first of all, is, do I need to run? And secondly, do I need to join a club? And I think they're the two. I think these days, this, as I explained in the Find Your Way project a couple of weeks ago, there's so many kind of things that are vying for our attention. They're already members of a running club, they're already members of a craft club, the kids are already members of a judo club, kind of thing. That, the biggest thing that can lead people into clubs anyway is participation. And I think there's still a lot of kind of communications amongst a lot of our clubs and a lot of our advertising collectively as a sport is that it's very club based, and that is the ultimate aim, to get people to join a club that we can start building a club around. You get volunteers out of it, you get a social atmosphere out of it, but people are not going to join clubs just off the bat these days. Like, it's a totally different scenario, it's a totally different society that we live in, and especially with the cohort that we're trying to attract with our strategic plan, the 16 to 40s, a lot of those people, and it's widespread across so many sports, whether it's Paddle UK, whether it's, tennis, that a lot of those age categories want to plug and play. They want to just turn up, take part, and they don't necessarily have the time, or they don't perceive they have the time to necessarily join a club, when actually, joining a club doesn't mean all of a sudden you're roped into committee meetings and you're roped into delivering an event and everything. And again, I think that's communication that we can put out there widely as a collective, as a sport, that says our clubs are here. These are the benefits of being at a club, and we would welcome you with open arms, but you can just participate as you want. And I think that kind of attitude will get 10 times more people in going at it saying, you must be a so-and-so member, you must be this, that, and the other, and I think that's the honest truth. We've got to have those kind of honest conversations of people are more likely to participate rather than be a club member first. That's not saying they won't be, but that's first where they're going to kind of enter our sport.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Roger and to Kay as well. I'll do one last lap around quickly on the chat and Q&A, but I think that will take us to the end of the questions that we have. And by the look of it, yes. So I will start to wrap things up a little bit here. So first of all, Kay, a huge thank you for the session. It was really good to hear you speak in such detail, and also with the amount of information as well, and the amount of on the slides. It was really good very good whole and rounded sort of overview of the impacts and also the Come and Try It events themselves. It's really enjoyable. I'm sure a lot of people will agree as well, and plenty of good practice in there as well. A huge thank you to everybody who's attended this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure to have everybody across all the sessions of the development conference. As Kay did mention before, this is the final session with the postponement and cancellation of the insurance policy session that was due to be rescheduled formally. I'd like to just wish a huge thank you to everybody for the development conference. It's the second year that I've been involved with it, and it's been very hectic at times, but an absolute pleasure as well. It's been so good to have so many people attending multiple sessions. I know that everybody will be sick of me, but I'm definitely not sick of seeing a lot of the same faces here over and over again. So a huge thank you for that. In terms of the usual feedback and follow-up, the video will be uploaded to the YouTube channel and will be put onto the website as well. You'll receive the usual email with all the information, and I'll make sure the slides are attached so everybody can have another look at all the information. And I will aim to get that out in the next 48 hours. For the next session, but there isn't one. The feedback form will be attached on there as well. I really appreciate that a lot of people have already done the feedback form for a session or two. This is your final chance if you do want to pop anything in, including topics for the next development conference or for webinars that we'll have across this year as well in the spring and autumn series. And it'd be really nice to hear from everybody again. And we really appreciate all the feedback so we can work on building the conference around all the members and what everybody wants to see. So a huge thank you all again for attending this evening. And I hope you have a good rest of your evening as well. Thank you very much, everybody.